Hello and welcome to The Signal on CBC Radio. It is Thursday, October 17th. I'm Bernice Hillier. Today on the show, how important is your local bank branch to you? With so many of us tapping and swiping and banking online, we'll talk about why in-person financial services are still important. Well, what does your local bank branch mean to you? Do you even go there? Would you miss it if it closed? You can call in to share your thoughts with us. I know there have been bank branch closures in many areas of Newfoundland and Labrador. Call in to share your thoughts with us. The numbers to call are 1-800-563-8255 or 709-772-7111. The number to send a text to is 709-327-8206. And I gave you the wrong number. If you're calling in the St. John's area, it's actually 709-722-7111 or 1-800-563-8255. We know the show always gets busy as it goes on, so get your calls in early. You can also send us an email at thesignal@cbc.ca. Now, we have several guests on The Signal today to talk about bank branch closures. Keith Billard is the mayor of Flowers Cove on the Great Northern Peninsula. His town lost its only bank branch last week. Hello, Mayor Billard.
How are you doing?
We're doing just fine. How are you doing today, sir?
Good, very good.
And we have
nice weather here, too.
I'm glad to hear it. You've got some sunshine on the Great Northern Peninsula.
Yep.
Terry Fleming joins us as well. He is Chief Administrative Officer or Town Manager in Grand Bank on the Burin Peninsula. His town's bank branch is closing today. Hello to you, Terry Fleming.
Good day, Bernice. Good day, Keith.
Yeah, good day.
You can hear each other, which is a great start. Terry Fleming, I want to start with you. You are Chief Administrative Officer in Grand Bank. Just tell me a bit about what's happening today with your town's only bank branch.
Well, today I'm actually looking out my window. I can see the bank from my office window, and the bank branch was only open for an hour today from 10 to 11. And while people were actually going into the bank, they had people taking down the signs from the building today. So it's kind of surreal to actually look out and see the signs gone.
So while customers were still inside doing the last of their banking at that location, the sign was coming down.
Sign was coming down while people were there.
Terry, how much notice were you given that the bank branch in Grand Bank would be closing?
I think we were notified, it was late last year or early this year, that we were notified the branch was closing. And immediately, as soon as we heard, we started lobbying as much as we could. Contacted the Prime Minister, contacted our local MP, MHA, the Premier, wrote to the CEO of Scotiabank, and even contacted the Financial Consumer Agency to see if they could intervene, but really didn't get a lot of response either way.
And Terry, what concerns did it raise for you when you found out that the Scotiabank branch in your town would be closing?
Well, I guess it's another. If you look at it from a business standpoint, it's another business that's actually closing, and but it's not just a business that we get tax revenue from. It's an institution that's been here for over 100 years that many people grew up relying on and took a lot of comfort knowing that their money was protected and they could go in and visit a local branch and see a familiar face and get their financial needs taken care of in person. And so it's a big concern for a lot of the populations and the aging population, a lot of seniors, and they like the face-to-face contact to be able to get their financial needs met.
I want to bring Keith Billard into the conversation now, the mayor of Flowers Cove, where the branch closed last Thursday. Does what Terry Fleming described there sound familiar to you?
He's totally correct. We got mostly seniors, and they don't bank online or by phone. They like to go to the bank, make a deposit, take some money out, that type of thing, right? We got a geographic range here, too. We got in our little area here, we got 13 communities from Anchor Point to Edith Cove East. And they're mostly seniors, all of them. And Rising by Arm, their bank closed last year, and they were coming over to Flowers Cove to bank. And that was shorter than going to St. Anthony. Plum Point Bank's here. Shoal Cove East, Reeves Tower. And you're looking at 90 to 100 or more kilometers to get one way. And if the weather is bad, it's dangerous.
And that is quite a distance to drive in the winter on the Great Northern Peninsula, isn't it? 90 or 100 kilometers.
Yeah, it's dangerous.
Mayor Billard, how did you find out that your town's bank branch would be closing? How much notice did you receive?
We late last year received a letter from the bank saying the possibility of closing, right? So we contacted whoever we could contact and find out whether exactly or not. As a matter of fact, they were only over there last week, and they got the place out. They took whatever they could take out and gone with it. And the way I see it is another nail in the coffin for rural Newfoundland to have that bank move.
Yeah, I want you to talk a bit more about that, Mayor Billard. How important would you say that bank branch was to people in your town?
It's very important. We got businesses here, restaurants, all that type of stuff, and it's an extra tour to try to get it to St. Anthony, for example. And really, it's totally unfair that the bean counters, I call them, the accountants or whatever, the bottom line, puts the dollar sign, the profit, over the service that they give to the residents of this area.
Keith Billard, Mayor Billard in Flowers Cove, we just heard Terry Fleming talk about today in Grand Bank with that sign coming down while there were still customers inside. What was it like last Thursday as the doors closed in Flowers Cove for the last time?
Pretty well. They've tried to jump ahead of the game and try to get the stuff out and see what they could do with regards to maybe they would do something with regards to deposit and withdrawals machine in the area. But we haven't heard anything back by that.
Okay. And we're going to continue our conversation with both of you gentlemen who've joined us today. You are listening to The Signal on CBC Radio 1. Today we're talking about in-person financial services in small towns. Bank branches have been closing in recent years in many areas of our province, but also across the country. Tell us how you use your local bank branch, if you do. How far do you have to go now to get in-person service? And is in-person banking even important to you anymore? The numbers to call are 1-800-563-8255 or 709-722-7111. You can also text us during the show, and you can get your comment on the radio that way. 709-327-8206. You can also send us an email, thesignal@cbc.ca. My guests today, I should say, on the show are Keith Billard, the mayor of Flowers Cove. We've been hearing from him. That bank branch in Flowers Cove closed last Thursday. Terry Fleming is the chief administrative officer in Grand Bank, where the bank branch closed today. Both of these bank branches were with Scotiabank. Keith Billard, I want to ask you, you talked about that 90 to 100 kilometers that people have to drive. Just describe what that can be like for people in your town, especially in the winter months.
It's brutal. I tell you right now, it's brutal. The roads are 430 is not in very good shape anyway, and it hasn't been patching and going, that type of thing. But the main thing is that when you travel in the wintertime, and we had a good winter last year, but before that, I mean, we had the road blocked by the airport and all that sort of stuff. It's very treacherous and dangerous to be driving that distance just to the bank.
Yeah, for sure. Terry Fleming, you're on the Burin Peninsula, near the toe of the boot, if I can say that. How far do people have to travel now to get from Grand Bank to wherever they can do in-person banking?
Be like 55 kilometers one way to get to Marystown. And again, like Keith mentioned, in the wintertime, no, you could experience 2 or 3 different types of weather on that route. It's quite open and quite blustery at even the best of days.
And Terry, what are some of the reasons that people in the Grand Bank area would need to go to a bank branch instead of making a transaction using Interac or doing it online?
Well, I think like we talked about before, a lot of seniors in this area, and I think a lot of them like you know my mother's a senior. She still she be online with Facebook, but doesn't do online banking. She doesn't trust online banking, and there's a lot of scams that are out that exist today, and a lot of them target seniors, and so they don't like doing EMT transfers and like to pay their bills in person and visit a branch that they know that their bill is paid that day, and maybe they take out a little bit extra for special occasions, for put in their grandchildren's birthday card or something. Like they like to have cash around for maybe putting in the weekly church envelope or something. Lots of reasons why people like to have cash, but I think particularly seniors, they don't really, not that familiar with maybe online banking and don't trust the technology as much as maybe some of the youth.
Mayor Billard, what would you say about that? What are some of the reasons that you hear from people in your area, in Flowers Cove and communities nearby, about why they want to go to a bank branch instead of doing something online or using Interac?
They like the personal touch. They want to talk to someone. They don't want to look at a phone or a bank machine. They want to talk to a banker and put the money in, know what they got, take a bit of cash they need, and anytime they need to get to the bank, they can get it.
I have a couple of statistics here from a survey that was done in 2023 by KPMG, and it talked to people. This survey interviewed more than 2,000 Canadians last year, and from all age ranges. So actually about 39% of the people surveyed were what they would call baby boomers. So they identified themselves as baby boomers. And there were some interesting results, with many people saying they had not been to a bank branch in a while, or they only go once or twice a year. But yet many people said that they want to keep their bank branch. So they don't necessarily do their own daily banking in person, but they do see value in keeping a bank branch. For example, 90% of the people surveyed think it's essential for Canada's major banks to keep rural and small town branches, especially in areas where high-speed broadband internet access is not available. I'm wondering about that. And obviously, Terry Fleming, you've talked about the whole issue of internet safety and the concerns with regard to scams that can take place online. But Terry Fleming, what is internet service like where you are, and how adaptable are people to getting online and doing the kinds of things they would need to do when it comes to banking?
Like in Grand Bank itself, we have high speed internet, so it's fairly reliable. And but like this area serves a large catchment area, and it takes in the Greater Lamilene area and Fortune, and but so in maybe in the Greater Lamilene area, the internet service is not as reliable, and so they may have difficulty if they're online trying to complete transactions with. Knowing if it's actually completed. And I've had those situations myself where you go to do something and, part ways through something happens and you don't know if it's actually gone through, if money's coming to your bank account or not. And because only even last night I mentioned to someone, I visited a local store and someone actually used their tap on their card. And I said, I do internet banking, but I haven't gone. I don't maybe people consider me a senior. I'm almost to that age, but I'm fairly good with technology. But I haven't enacted the tap on function on my card because I don't really trust it. I like to, when I use my card, to put in the PIN number to know I got some security around, what I'm actually approving. So, if you're asking seniors and, the use technology and advance to, tap and EMTs, I think it's, it's a lot to ask of people. So that's like Keith said. I think people like the comfort of, knowing they can go to a branch and speak to someone that they know and to get their affairs dealt with.
Mayor Billard, when you found out that the bank branch in Flowers Cove was slated for closure, you said you immediately took action to lobby to keep it open. What were the answers that you received?
Well, actually, we received nothing. So we sent a letter to them, and we talked about M&L at their conferences with regards to the very important to have banks in your community. But, like you're saying here, our internet is okay, but there's a gap in the cell phone. So if you're traveling from Flowers Cove to St. Anthony, you're going to hit a gap there where your cell phone won't work. And that's dangerous if you break down, or especially in the wintertime. And that's why the seniors do not want to travel that extra hour and a half or worse, more, or get stuck. And they can go around 5 minutes or down to the bank by their children driving them down or something. They don't want to drive that distance to the bank.
Mayor Billard, you said that the building has been vacated there that used to be the Bank of Nova Scotia branch. What will happen with that building, and what would you like to see happen, I guess? Well,
the solution, I would see the solution is that Bank of Nova Scotia turn over the land, building, and property to the town if they want it. And it was up to the town then to try to get a credit union or a Royal Bank or some other bank to come in and take over the property.
And what about for you, Terry Fleming, there in Grand Bank? You were telling me that you had hoped that the bank might consider being willing to maintain a service in Grand Bank even a couple of days a week.
Like Keith just said, we didn't even get a response from the numerous letters that we've sent off to try to explain the rationale for closing. And, obviously for us, we're surmising that it's coming down to dollars and cents, and the Scotiabank is just worried about profits. And, maybe they're not making as much profit as they made, 10 years ago, but the town of Grand Bank in this area is still fairly prosperous. There's a lot of, the fishery is still strong, and there's a lot of fishing enterprises around here. And I'm sure, over the last 100 years, the Scotiabank here made quite a bit of money. And, I think as a corporate citizens, they should have explored all options to see if they could still provide a service to this area. But we didn't really get a response whatsoever, one way or the other.
You're listening to The Signal on CBC Radio 1. Today we're talking about bank branch closures, and I should say that the recent closures have been primarily of Scotiabank bank branches, but we have seen all of the major banks with bank branch closures across the country. I reached out to Scotiabank and asked them to join us today. I was told that they would provide a statement to us to read on the radio. As of yet, just now anyway, I have not yet received that response, and I certainly will read it if it comes in before the end of our time together here on The Signal today. We are joined now by a representative of another community that's been affected by a bank branch closure in recent months. Sandy Crawford is Deputy Mayor on Fogo Island. Sandy, good afternoon and welcome to The Signal.
Hi, how are you today?
Fine, thank you. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right. I have to apologize. I have a little bit of a cold today, so my voice may be a little deeper than normal, but yeah, it's a pleasure to be here with you today.
Well, you are sounding best kind to us.
Well, thank you.
Sandy, what happened to your local bank branch on Fogo Island?
Yes, so similar to the gentleman that have been speaking before, we were informed, I guess it's about a year ago now or so, that the Scotiabank branch will be leaving Fogo Island after well over 100 years on our island. And much the same as the other gentleman, we looked for answers, and with little answers, basically we were told that Scotiabank is transforming their customer experience into more digital offerings, which of course wouldn't work and doesn't work for an island like ours. So, and then the bank left.
Yeah, and Sandy, I want to ask you, you're the deputy mayor there on Fogo Island, so people will know that means that you have to take a ferry to get to where you are. So just explain how complicated it becomes when you don't have a local bank branch and people on Fogo Island need to do some in-person banking.
For sure. So for us, it's a full day experience. If you were handed a basic personal check, it would be a full day to cash that check at a branch. So, for example, if I was leaving Fogo Island for a 10 a.m. ferry, I would arrive to probably the nearest branch, which would be Gander, by 12. Then if I continue and do my business that I need to do, I'd return, and it would be well after 5 o'clock before I would return to the island. Now, for someone like seniors, it's a great headache. I mean, you're talking a full day travel to do some basic banking when some of these seniors, especially on Fogo Island, have had the same account for their lifetime.
And Sandy, I know there are listeners who are thinking, well, you can take a picture of a check and upload it on the internet and your bank deposit can be made that way. What are some of the reasons people might want to or need to go to a bank branch instead of just doing something electronically?
Right. Well, just to touch on seniors again, I mean, some seniors don't want to learn about that or have the capacity at this point to do online banking, tap, e-transfers, this sort of thing. So having the ability to go to your local branch is, for some of these people, this was normal. Now, for it just to be taken away, it was detrimental to the island. Now we haven't even talked about the local businesses that are being forced to make decisions on do I become cashless? Do I take cash? Then it becomes a fact of, deposits and carrying large sums of cash. So if I got to go to Gander with a big deposit, I might be going across with $10,000 or upwards of more. I get online banking. I get the transition to a digital. It's the way of the future. But, for Newfoundland in general and some of our rural communities, I mean, it hurts the community. I mean, it's a basic service, and for it to be taken away, it's not a good thing for sure.
Sandy, you have made some arrangements to have in-person financial services continue on Fogo Island. Just talk about how that all came about and what will be happening.
Yes, we're super excited to and very fortunate, and of course are celebrating the Atlantic Edge Credit Union, their decision to open a branch here on the island. We worked very hard to achieve that, and many residents, along with counselors, have spent numerous hours on the phone, writing emails, writing letters, lobbying with any bank at that point to come here. And like I said, Atlantic Edge stepped up, and we're super proud to have that. And we are eagerly awaiting the opening early November, around there.
How are people feeling about that as a solution?
They're quite happy. We obviously wanted a bank, and that was our number one priority. But having Atlantic Edge Credit Union come as a cooperative, it's a great thing. It's a great fit for Fogo Island. I mean, we have a long history of cooperatives on Fogo Island, namely with the Fogo Island Cooperative Society, our fishing industry. So for us on Fogo Island, it's a model our residents understand and they appreciate.
And Sandy, you talked about people having their accounts at a specific bank for most of their lifetime. Are people willing to make the switch?
I think so. I think, we all have stories of our local bank branches and headaches and happy times, I'll say. But to have a bank come back, I do believe people will make the switch. I mean, I've made the switch personally, and I love calling credit union and getting a human voice. There's something special about that. So I think our residents, like I said, are super excited. They're ready, and I think it's going to improve business and just regular life back here on Fogo Island.
And of course, Sandy, Fogo Island is also a very popular spot for tourists, so people may come with the expectation that they'll have access to some kind of banking service. So now you can, once the credit union opens, be able to provide that for them.
For sure. I've met people on the streets throughout this past summer that were unaware that we didn't have a bank, came with their bank card, and, places need cash. So, if I don't have the option of getting cash other than an ATM, what if I have American money or a different type of money and I need it transferred? It was not possible back then. So with this announcement, it will be possible moving forward.
Well, Deputy Mayor Crawford, we appreciate your time today. Thanks for taking our call.
Thank you very much. Have a wonderful day, everyone.
You as well. That is Sandy Crawford. He is Deputy Mayor on Fogo Island, and that's a community that has lost a bank branch, but a credit union will be moving into that location. You are listening to The Signal on CBC Radio 1 today. We're talking about financial services in rural and remote communities. Do you still go to your local bank branch? If so, why do you go there? What do you go there to do? And if not, is having a bank branch near you important at all to you? The numbers to call are 1-800-563-8255 or 709-722-7111. We have Daryl on the line from Gander. We'll go to the phone line now. Good afternoon, Daryl. Welcome to The Signal.
Good afternoon to you, Bernice, and your listening audience, and thank you for having me on your show.
Do you have a comment about bank branch closures, or has that impacted you directly?
No, haven't impacted me where I'm in Gander, but my wheels have been turning. I've been listening to the recent closure as of today down in Grand Bank, Scotiabank, and I was listening to your last caller there, Sandy. They got the Atlantic Edge coming into Fogo, which I'm glad to hear that. And you got to do something, especially like tourism or whatever, but for the convenience of people in the community. But I've been thinking, like, if a lot of communities, say outside of Fogo, if they can't get, like, say, the Atlantic Edge or the Newfoundland Labrador Credit Union or Hamilton Sound or wherever the case may be, here's an option what they can do. It will require a lot of red tape and regulations, but why don't they form their own co-op, like for banking? Because you got co-op now for business, grocery stores, farming, and as Fogo is a good example of co-op, like for fishing and whatever, a cooperative. So why don't the communities, like, not saying it's written in stone, to explore the option of forming their own co-op for banking? Now, I know there's a lot of lakes of red tape and whatever, and you have to have insurances and all that stuff just in case whatever could happen. But maybe, like, there's no harm to explore that option at no cost and see if you could form your own co-op for banking if you can't get no other institution come in. Like the big banks now, they're just looking at dollars and cents and profits, and they don't see the trend not going well in their favor. Well, they up and close, as we've seen in Grand Bank today and other rural communities, not only in Newfoundland, Labrador, but Atlantic Canada. They closed a lot of places, like with all the banks. So maybe a cooperative bank formed, or the community got control of the bank, and they answer to themselves. So it's something for them probably to explore.
All right, Daryl, thanks for calling in today.
All right, thank you, Bernice, and keep up the great work.
We had a text come in, and here I'll read what we received via text. Banks should be careful what they wish for. Once the physical location in a community closes and people are forced to do online banking, there is no reason any longer to stay with that bank. My guests today here on The Signal are Keith Billard, Mayor of Flowers Cove on the Great Northern Peninsula. His town lost its only bank branch last week. Terry Fleming is with us on the show today as well. He is Chief Administrative Officer in Grand Bank on the Burin Peninsula, and his town's bank branch is closing today, has closed as of 11 o'clock this morning. The numbers to call if you have a comment, you can get in touch with us, 722-7111 if you're calling in the St. John's area. Anywhere in the province, you can call 1-800-563-8255. You can text to us, as that person just did, 709-327-8206. You can also send us an email, thesignal@cbc.ca. Now, we heard a few moments ago from the Deputy Mayor of Fogo Island that town lost its only bank branch, but is preparing to welcome a credit union branch to the island. We have a representative from the Atlantic Edge Credit Union with us in this second half hour of The Signal. Candace Matthews is Manager of Member Experience and Communications with the Atlantic Edge Credit Union. She's been listening in our St. John's studio and joins the program now. Hello, Candace.
Hello, Bernice. I'm so happy to be here. Perhaps dispel some myths about credit unions while I'm here.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, can you talk a bit about the difference, if there are any, between a credit union and a bank?
Absolutely. And I'll start by saying a happy International Credit Union Day. Today is the 76th International Credit Union Day, so there are celebrations in 800,000 credit unions across the globe today. So I don't think there are many International Bank Days, but I'll just get that little dig in there. But happy to talk about the difference, because essentially those differences are very, very few now. At a credit union, you can do all of the exact same transactions that you can at a chartered bank. You can have access to products and services, financial planning, business services, all of the digital, banking things that we love, and also, of course, in-branch services. So there really isn't a big difference between a credit union and a bank in terms of how members, we call them, or customers of a bank transact. The biggest difference is in our structure and the way that we are built. So banks are for-profit organizations, but we're profit-for-purpose organizations. So it's really about what we do with profits. And in a credit union, the profit is shared back to the membership at the end of the year. So whether that is through enhancements to products and services, lower rates and fees, or dividends and patronage refunds at the end of the fiscal year based on the amount of transacting you do with the credit union. When we turn a profit, that profit goes back to our membership. So with chartered banks, they are beholden to their shareholders, on Bay Street and in that financial market. Whereas in credit unions, that money is in more of a circular economy, and it stays in the community. It stays with the members who own it. So back to your caller, Daryl, he was suggesting forming a cooperative. That's what a credit union is. It's a financial cooperative. And every member that banks with the credit union is an owner of their own financial institution, and they're equal owners. So if you have $10 million in the credit union, you have one vote, one share. If you have $10 in the credit union, you have one vote, one share. And so there's the ability to elect your own representatives to govern your credit union. And that's the key difference. And that's what makes us so excited about conversations like this.
How is it? I know many people will wonder, how is it that credit unions are able to maintain services in locations where bank branches have not stayed open?
Yeah, so there's always that conversation about profit. I would assume, and I can't speak for banks, but profit is their key driver. They have to drive those profits for that return to their shareholders. For credit unions, profit is extremely important, but it's about sustainability. So we need to make sure that we can keep the doors open. We are the stewards of our members' money. So when a member, banks and transacts with the credit union, deposits and gets loans with the credit union, we are responsible for maintaining that the health and well-being of the credit union on behalf of our member owners. So our formulas are different. Our, the end goal is in making decisions in the best interest of the membership and the credit union as a whole, rather than in the best interest of necessarily, ultimate profit or maximizing profit. We maximize value rather than maximizing profit. But it's really important to understand that credit unions still have to be sustainable. We still have regulations and guidance that ensures that our members are always at the forefront of our decisions and are protected, actually more protected than banks. Banks guarantee deposits up to $100,000, and we guarantee deposits up to $250,000. So, at the end of the day, with all things being equal, we offer the same products and services, but we operate based on our values, on our cooperative principles and values.
You're listening to The Signal on CBC Radio 1. Today we're talking about financial services in rural and remote parts of the province. My guests today throughout The Signal have been Keith Billard, the mayor of Flowers Cove on the Great Northern Peninsula, and Terry Fleming, chief administrative officer in Grand Bank on the Burin Peninsula. And both of those communities have just very recently lost their bank branches. Also with us in the second half hour of the program, we've been hearing from Candace Matthews, the manager of member experience and communications with the Atlantic Edge Credit Union. We have a caller on the line now. John is with us. Good afternoon to you, John.
Hello, is that me?
It is indeed.
Yeah, I was just going to ask about what's the difference in the big name branches or banks and a cooperative. I know the credit union, I'm really enjoying the program, by the way, but I know the credit union, I think your guest there said that it's also a cooperative, right? So I was just wondering, I think she pretty well explained what the difference is, right? But I'll let her go ahead. And I was interested in that the amount of money that she just said about protecting the deposits. What was the difference in the regular bank and, say, a credit union, right? And the credit union is a co-op, right, I think?
All right. Well, John, we'll let you go. Maybe you can listen as Candace responds to your questions. I think she's covered off a fair number of those questions, but we'll let her respond. Candace?
For sure. Yeah, thanks, John. It's a great question. And I'll clarify that chartered banks are insured by the Credit Deposit Insurance Corporation, which is a federal corporation, Crown Corporation, and they do cover deposits in the event of a bank failure. This is. So if a bank were to go under, which is extremely rare, your deposits up to $100,000 per deposit account would be covered. The credit unions are provincially regulated by a corporation called the Credit Union Deposit Guarantee Corporation. And our deposits, if in the event of a credit union, having trouble, would be covered up to $250,000 per deposit account. So those are just the little differences. Again, both of those instances would be extremely rare, but it's the difference between federal regulation and provincial regulation.
I want to come back to Mayor Billard on the line from Flowers Cove on the Great Northern Peninsula. Mayor Billard, is there anything you've heard in the last 10 minutes or so that you'd like to comment on, or if you have a question perhaps for Candace Matthews of the Credit Union?
Well, I'd say it's a good news situation for Fogo, and hats off to Atlantic Edge Credit Union. Excellent way to move. And what I suggest is the solution to it is that the bank turn over the property and everything to the town to try to find a bank, credit union, or whatever to come and take their place. That's the number one solution, and Fogo has already done that.
Terry Fleming, you're on the line from Grand Bank. You're the chief administrative officer there. Your town's bank branch closed just today. Any comment that you'd like to make on either what our callers have had to say or what we've been hearing from Candace Matthews of the Atlantic Edge Credit Union?
It was all interesting comments, and we actually reached out to Community Credit Union, and they have their head office in Marystown and got several branches in Whitlas Bay and Hermitage. And we reached out to them to see if they'd be interested in establishing a presence here. And they did go and consider it and do the research, and we provided them with quite a bit of information around our population and demographics and stuff. And so they did give it due consideration, but they came back and basically decided that it didn't make sense for them at this time to establish a presence here, unfortunately. And another thing that we've done, the town has done as recently as last month, is that we've actually written Canada Post to see if Canada Post, Canada Post, if you travel anywhere across rural Newfoundland, the smallest places have a Canada Post outlet. And so we've written to Canada Post to see if they could expand their services to maybe include some type of financial services. And, but we haven't heard back from them yet, but maybe that's an option.
The work is ongoing, obviously. Terry, thank you very much for that.
Yeah.
That's Terry Fleming, the Chief Administrative Officer in Grand Bank. Keith Billard is with us today, the Mayor of Flowers Cove on the Great Northern Peninsula, and Candace Matthews from the Atlantic Edge Credit Union, also a guest on our program. She's in studio in St. John's. On the line now, we have a representative of another community affected by a bank branch closure. Mike Guzny is Mayor of Deer Lake. Good afternoon to you, Mayor Guzny, and welcome to The Signal.
Good afternoon. Thanks for having me.
Mayor Guzny, tell us what happened to your local bank branch.
Yeah, so it was quite a shocker, actually. The branch was here for quite some time, as was the other two. One is a credit union and the Bank of Montreal, but we were given pretty much short notice, given a number to called it numerous times with no reply, so that was a little concerning. It created quite an inconvenience in a short time for residents that would avail of that service, and mainly seniors that would be impacted for travel now to Corner Brook and also small business. It was quite a shocker. We didn't expect Deer Lake to be in the line of cut, so here we are.
Yeah, and Mayor Guzny, I want to provide our listeners with some context, because Deer Lake really is positioned as a regional hub. It serves communities in the White Bay area, as far away as Grosse Moor, probably even farther. So how surprised were you when a bank announced it was going to close its branch in a town the size of Deer Lake?
Quite surprised, because as you said, this is a regional hub. It services White Bay, some parts of the Northern Peninsula, Pasadena. There was clients from there that would bank in Deer Lake as well, Howley, Cormac, and all the other areas, communities close to Deer Lake. So obviously when it comes to, comments made prior, it comes down to, when they do their research, I guess, on a scope of bank branch densities per capita, we really didn't expect to be in that cut, and it was quite alarming. So, since that time, I've started doing some research. Staff have done some research, and unfortunately, this isn't a thing that's probably going to change anytime soon. I think if you look at research in the UK in the last 20 years, they've had a significant amount of cuts. They went from almost 19,000 banks down to 9,000 banks locally. So you can see where the trend is going. And on that note, last year, our Health and Wellness Committee did a seminar for seniors or anybody that was wanting to learn more about online banking and digital, because there's no hidden secret that's where things are going, is to digital and online. So we're trying to help residents to get ahead of that, because not everybody has that education or knowledge, myself included. Most times, online banking, you're teaching yourself, right? So we're hoping to partner with other groups as well going forward to try to, alleviate some of the stress on this transition for our residents.
Mayor Guzny, we had a comment earlier from someone saying, if you force people to do online banking, maybe they'll switch. Maybe they won't stay with the bank that they're with. What are people doing? Are people switching to the other banks that you have in your town as a result of the closure of that local bank branch?
Well, I've heard some conversation, and I can't actually speak to it by facts. I mean, with numbers, I wouldn't have those on hand, but I have heard quite a few coffee shop talks that, people are transitioning and looking to go more local, which would be with the credit union, because they feel that the credit union won't pull out on profit cuts. And hearing a lot of other good things about the local credit union, they ultimately was unbeknown to myself, but they make donations to the food bank every single year and have been one of the largest supporters of it. And I'm not going to get into trying to advertise for each or the other, but people are looking at which bank is going to stay around, because everybody's not 100% sure that, in 10 years' time there will be banks in our community. So,
Mayor Guzny, thanks for your time today.
All right, thank you.
That's Mike Guzny, the mayor of Deer Lake. And further to what he was saying there, some of the research I was doing, or reading I was doing yesterday, some of the recent data from the World Bank says that the average number of bank branches per 100,000 adults in Canada is 20.7. So 20.7 bank branches per 100,000 adults in Canada. The global average is just 11.2. So the number of bank branches globally definitely fewer per capita than we have in Canada right now. We've been talking about the impact of bank branch closures in rural and remote parts of Newfoundland and Labrador, but I want to emphasize that the access to financial services can also be an issue even in an urban area. Ken Whitehurst is Executive Director of the Consumers Council of Canada, and he joins me on the line right now. Hello, Ken.
Hello, nice to be with you.
And Ken, we often think of big cities as being full of these bank towers, loads of access for consumers. But I know that you want to talk about how bank branches have dwindled in number even in larger centers, right?
That's very much true. Retail banking, when it was built around cash, needed to be at every corner, but it's increasingly less likely to be built around cash. So branches are closing even in relatively urbanized areas, and of course, access in an urban area is just like access anywhere. Can you get there, and can you get there in the time that you have to do it? And so moving around in urban areas is often far from simple, and it's certainly for certain categories of customer, it's always been a problem, whether the retail branch is on the street, on your immediate street corner, or a mile away. So this problem of accessibility is happening. You can go into urban branches and you'll see it's a pretty specialized clientele that are actually in the branch, and service even within branches is being reduced because traffic is reduced.
And Ken, there's an assumption that people can get connected and do their financial transactions electronically. What is problematic about that assumption?
Well, of course, this assumes access to the network. The CRTC has set goals for price and access to networks. They haven't gone as far as we used to have with telephone, with really, really low rates, and the telecom company actually providing you with the telephone. But they do take steps there, but there's still practical issues. Whether you're in a rural area where maybe you don't have great internet coverage, even if you can afford it and understand it, or if you're in a local area or in an urban area and you're in a big multi-floor tower built of concrete through which, say, a cellular service signal can't penetrate. And some people, do all their internet now in their hand on a smartphone because that's what they can afford.
Ken, we do have other callers on the line, but I want to say I appreciate you being willing to join us today for part of this conversation. Thanks so much.
You're welcome.
That is Ken Whitehurst. He is Executive Director of the Consumers Council of Canada. Now, you can look them up online, the Consumers Council of Canada. And I did reach out to the Financial Consumer Agency of Canada, which is the federal body that supervises the compliance of federally regulated financial institutions, including banks. I asked the Financial Consumer Agency of Canada, or the FCAC, for an interview for today's show. They declined to join us for a conversation, but they did provide me with a little bit of information that you might find to be of interest, that under Canadian law, federally regulated financial institutions such as banks are required to provide notice of at least 4 months in advance, in some cases 6 months before closing a branch. They say that the decision to close a branch is a business decision, but prior to the closure of a branch, banks are expected to hold an effective, timely, accessible, and open consultation to ascertain the views of stakeholders such as customers of the branch, the public, and interested parties in the area. They say the FCAC cannot compel a bank branch to stay open. We have Dick Whitaker on the line now from Portugal Cove. Good afternoon to you, Dick.
Good afternoon. Hi, Keith. How are you?
How are you doing, boy?
I'm still hanging in there like a dirty shirt, you know.
That's good.
I'm listening to this carefully. We're lucky. We live in Portugal Cove and near St. John's, and we can drive in and we can still do that. And you can get the face-to-face stuff that you can't, that matters so much more than a lot of the other things. And, in your local, a place like where Keith is, a bank manager who can provide you direct, information, they become in a sense, your friend, and this sort of thing. And I think that sort of thing is getting lost in this cashless society, or so-called cashless society. The other thing, Keith, and the Pogo may have solved their problem, but I would imagine that this will impact tourism, which is a major factor in your area, and all through the northern and throughout Newfoundland, for that matter, in the rural Newfoundland. And distance is an issue. Takes a while to go from wherever you need to go to, say, to get to a bank or something like that. If you're up where you are, as you said, Keith, it's a long trip. And I wonder if you guys could comment on that.
All right, Dick, we'll let you go, and you can listen offline perhaps, and we'll get Mayor Billard to jump in here now right away. Mayor Billard?
Yeah, the main thing is, like up here in the Great Northern Peninsula on the tip here, we get a lot of campers and people from Europe and everything visiting Tromblights and other sightseeing. And having a bank in Flowers Cove, they can access that. And we got the business here, we need it. Tourism is very important. And there's a stakeholder involved, and it should happen. By the way, we never got no 4 or 6 months with open consultation either. Remember they talked about 4 to 6 months?
Yeah, you did not receive that notice.
All we received was one notice, and that was it.
Okay. Now, I did just receive about 5 minutes ago an email from Scotiabank, so I want to share that with our listeners today because we did ask them to join us for an interview. They declined to do that, but here's what we've received from them. As customer preferences are changing and more day-to-day banking is being done online, we are continuing to evolve how we serve our customers and invest in making it easier for our customers to bank with us from wherever they are. Where we are consolidating some branches, we continue to invest in refreshing and opening new branches as well. When we do consolidate a branch, we will look for ways to continue to provide services to our customers in the area. We are committed to supporting our customers through any transition, and in cases of branch consolidation, we create a unique and robust community engagement plan, which includes in-branch community outreach days, engaging seniors and meeting with customers one-on-one as needed. That's a response from Scotiabank today in response to our inquiry about the closure of branches in our area. Candace Matthews, I want to give you the final word here on the program today. I know that we don't want to raise expectations unduly. In about 30 seconds, can you just say, are you looking at some other new locations? Are some conversations taking place?
I can say for sure that we are constantly looking at innovation when it comes to service delivery model. And I think in a province like Newfoundland and Labrador, with the rural geography that we have and the lower population levels, this is something that's very important to Atlantic Edge Credit Union to consider. Our CEO has been working diligently. He's with Acadia business students today. And one of the challenges for those students that he's putting forward is about service delivery challenges in rural areas and remote rural areas as well.
Candace, we do have to leave it there. We're headed to news time. Thank you to you for joining me, Candace Matthews with Atlantic Edge. Thank you to Keith Billard, the mayor of Flowers Cove, and to Terry Fleming in Grand Bank, the chief administrative officer there, for being with us on The Signal today. Have a great afternoon, everyone.